Hi guys, welcome to today's tutorial. In today's video, we're going to be making this shaker piece you see here on your screen. And for that, we are going to use our butterfly shaker keychain mold. The walls of the butterfly shaker have already been made with leftover resin from a previous project and left to sit to cure. For today's project, we are going to be using this little distributing cup you see here, some fuchsia translucent resin pigment, so the resin we are using for today's project has already been mixed with hardener. It's was a 2:1 mix ratio of the O-Celle Craft Crystal Clear epoxy resin brand. So we are going to pour a reasonable quantity into our distributing cup, after which we'll add some few drops of the translucent pigment, and then we are going to stir that and pour it into the mold. So this here is the exact consistency of translucent pigment I was looking for. One thing about this translucent pigment is that it tends to turn deeper once it cures, so don't overuse it, else you will not get the shade you are looking for. Okay, so once the pouring is done, the next thing we are going to do is to use the bubble spray over the surface to get rid of any bubbles and leave it to sit for 24 hours. So this here is what we have after 24 hours. You can clearly see that the shade of the translucent pigment has deepened, as I said earlier. So that's the effect we have now, and it's a beautiful shade of fuchsia pigment. So for the second part of the tutorial, we are going to be using this holographic gold chunky glitter. This little scoop here. We'll also be using the acrylic film or sheet. Next item is the syringe, the disposable syringe, our baby oil. We'll also need a UV lamp as well as the UV resin. So we are going to move on to demold the piece, after which we can proceed with the shaker tutorial. So here you can see the translucent effect that we were looking for in today's project. Translucent meaning you can see through it. Another notable feature is the shaker cavity that we have in the project. Okay, so this part here is what we call the cavity, and that's what makes it the shaker. Okay, and then it's gotten from the type of mold that was used in the project. You can clearly see that the mold also has those cavities, and then the resin fills in those cavities and gives us this effect we have here. So we'll be using the gold chunky glitter as the fillings for the shaker. So we are going to use the little plastic scoop to just collect a few of it or a little quantity of it into the cavity based on the kind of effect you are trying to create. Here you can use any item that you have available. It could be beads, it could be glitter, anything at all, just to make the kind of effect or design you have in mind come to life. So this is how it's going to look while it's poured into the cavity. The next thing we have to do is to attach the acrylic film, pour or transfer in the baby oil, and then we can move on to the next step. So the acrylic film has a protective backing that protects the film from scratch and getting soiled. So to be able to use it, you have to make sure you take that off. So to be able to adhere the acrylic film to the butterfly, we are going to need our UV resin. Line the edges of the butterfly with it, and from there we're going to attach the acrylic film to the surface and cure with the UV lamp. The reason why UV resin is the preferred resin to use for this particular project is that UV resin cures within a matter of minutes when exposed to UV rays from the sun or a UV lamp. So with this UV resin, you can choose to either use a nozzle cap or a screw cap. So this one here is the nozzle cap. It has a pointed tip where you can pour little quantities of the UV resin at a time from, so as not to waste too much of your chemical and not to over pour the resin whenever you are working on a project. Just to be sure or to be careful, you can also employ the use of a toothpick so as to avoid spillage or wastage of the UV chemical. So here you are going to apply few drops of the UV chemical onto the butterfly shape, and then draw out the entire shape or connect the liquid drops along the edges of the butterfly, just to make sure it is evenly distributed. Next, you're going to peel off the protective sheets or the protective backing, and we're going to put the acrylic film on the resin piece or the butterfly piece. Align that to make sure it's well placed on top of the surface, and we're going to cure that and proceed with the rest of the project. To be able to cure our project, we are going to have to expose it to UV rays from the UV lamp we have. So the UV lamp comes with a USB cable or cord that serves as a power cable, right? So with the help of this power cable, we'll be able to connect our UV lamp to a source of power. Another important feature of the UV lamp is that it comes with two wings that you spread out and use as a stand for the lamp. That way you can easily place it on top of your project and leave it to cure without having to worry your hands. The UV lamp has a 60 and 120 second power on duration that you can activate. So for it to be on for 60 seconds, you just press the power button once. However, if you want it to be on for 120 seconds, you press down and hold on the power button for 2 seconds before leaving it to turn on and run for 120 seconds, which is 2 minutes. So once that's fully cured, you can now lift up the project and shake it around without having the chunky glitter or the shaker fillings fall out of it. So now the next step is for us to add or to transfer in the baby oil that's going to give it the shaker liquid effect. So for the transfer, we are going to be using the syringe. Okay, so this here is a 5 ml disposable syringe that we are going to use to draw the baby oil. And then with the help of how pointy the needle is, we're going to be able to poke a little hole in the acrylic film and transfer the baby oil into it. There are so many methods I use to transfer or to draw the baby oil from a container into the syringe. And the very first one is to pour a desired quantity into any clean container that I have around, and then use the syringe tube to draw out the liquid, after which I'm going to just take out the needle and attach it to the tube. You have to make it a point to identify and to get rid of any bubbles that are stuck in the syringe so as to not interrupt with the transfer or the flow of the oil into the shaker. With the help of the needle, you are going to poke 2 holes into the acrylic film. The first one is to transfer in or push in the baby oil, whilst the second one allows the air that is already inside the shaker come out to avoid any pressure being built in the cavity. The second method of drawing the baby oil from the container is to do it directly with the needle on top of it. However, with this method, there is much resistance since the baby oil has a very thick consistency. However, you can still use this method if you find it more favorable to you. To achieve a very satisfying shaker effect, you are going to want to leave a little bit of air inside the cavity. That way the oil is able to move around and give you the kind of swirl or the kind of effect you are looking for at the end of the day. Once you are done pouring or transferring in your baby oil, you are going to want to seal the hole that you poked with the needle. And then here the UV resin plays a very vital role since it cures very fast. So you're going to just put a few drops of UV resin on the holes that were poked with the needles, and then you are going to cure them under the UV lamp. You can feel free to give it a little bit of a shake or maybe an aggressive one just to see the beautiful piece you have just made. So now the holes are well sealed, so the shaker is ready. So you could actually say you are done at this point. However, I will give a little bit of advice to dome it, okay? So looking at the top of the piece from an angle, you can clearly see the part that was domed with the UV resin, and then the edges of the acrylic film are also very visible. So you can use UV resin to dome the surface and cure it under your lamp or under sunlight, or you can just mix another batch of epoxy resin with the hardener and then dome it with it, which is my preference. I normally prefer to dome with resin mixed with hardener. So I'm going to do that off camera and then come back again and do the doming. So here we have our 2-part epoxy resin. Here the mixture is made up of part A and part B mixed together. It's a 2-to-1 mix ratio. So don't get confused and think that when it's time for doming, you don't need your hardener. You need the hardener, okay? So you pour your resin, you pour your hardener based on the ratio you are working with. So this has already been mixed off camera. All that is left for me to do is to pour the desired quantity into the distributing cup, and I'm going to pour that onto the surface of the butterfly piece. You are going to want to make sure it stays within the shape and don't let it overflow to the other ends, right? So you can pour a little quantity at a time and direct it wherever you want it to go with the help of your mixing stick, your toothpick, or anything that makes it very easy to get the job done. One other thing you realize is that immediately the project or the piece is domed, it looks much shinier and much glossier. So once you're done with the doming and spreading out of the chemical in all the corners you want it to go, you're going to use your alcohol spray to pop the bubbles. In place of the alcohol spray, you can also use your heat gun or your lighter, depending on what you have available and what you are much comfortable working with. After popping the bubbles from the surface, you are going to leave it for 24 hours or 12 to 24 hours depending on the curing duration of the resin you are working with. After the curing duration is up, you're going to get a perfectly cured piece, and if the doming was done right, you can look on the edges of your project and you're not going to see any spilled resin that has cured on those sides. All items used in today's tutorial have been listed in the description of the video, and you can find all of them in our walk-in shop at our Dental New site and on our official website at O-Celle.com. So this brings us to the end of today's tutorial. A piece like this can be used as a keychain. It can also be used as a pop socket or attached to a phone cover to just elevate the design. Thank you so much for watching. I would like to see what you would also be able to create with a simple design or a simple idea like this in your own color or your own shape. Don't forget to subscribe, to like, and to share, and comment any questions you have as well. Hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.